Shenzhen, Shanghai.
We are right here in Shenzhen, and we started organizing things so that we could check out the Magic 8 Pro as well, since Honor has a huge flagship store here in Shenzhen, which is actually called the Alpha Store. It is called the Alpha Store because it is the first Honor brand store that aims to implement Honor's Alpha strategy. So we combined the two things. On the one hand, we checked out the Magic 8 Pro, and on the other, we visited this so-called Alpha Store. Now, obviously, organizing all this was not exactly a walk in the park, but after a lot of emailing and chatting with many different people, we finally managed to get assigned a PR representative from Honor, a woman named Alex, whom I had never met before, which is mainly because Alex had only been working at Honor for about 4 days when we started talking, and even now, she hasn't been there for more than 2 weeks. So this was basically her first appearance as well, and for us it was our first opportunity to meet her. As it turned out, she had never met anyone from the tech media before, since she was just hired for this position, so this was kind of an initiation ceremony for her too. So after this lunch, he took us to Honor's illustrious, largest, newest, and most up-to-date Alpha store, which is located at the base of one of Shenzhen's skyscrapers. This skyscraper is actually also a mall, and inside there's a 2-story Honor store. You can access the lower level from the street and the upper level from inside the mall, but there's also a staircase connecting the two inside. So there we checked out not only the Honor Magic 8 Pro, but also the store itself. Now, I think I'll start with the store and leave the Magic 8 Pro for the end. The point of the Honor Alpha store is that Honor has come up with a new strategy, which is basically based on the idea that, okay, we already know how to make phones, so let's build an ecosystem around them. Because as you know, building an ecosystem from scratch is relatively difficult. Many companies have been building ecosystems for a long time, and step by step, they've built it up step by step. As you know, we can name ecosystems that exist today. Apple has one, Samsung has one, and Xiaomi, for example, also has a very large ecosystem. Now, Honor is trying to step onto this path, but it's not something they can just shake out of their sleeve. It's not about suddenly from tomorrow manufacturing everything else that can be connected to Honor phones. Instead, they want to establish partnerships with other external manufacturers so that on Honor phones, the connectivity can be done with a simple gesture. Now, the first step in this process, where they are at right now, is that they've brought in a bunch of other brands under their wing, brands that are considered very good in their own fields, and they've placed their products in this Alpha store. That's why you can find a gaming keyboard there, you can find high-quality speakers from Marshall, you can find an action camera from Insta360, so there are many different products from many different manufacturers available there. For now, there's no sign that these work any more seamlessly with Honor phones than with anything else. Rather, what Honor is doing is essentially making a gesture to show that they want to work more closely with these companies in the future. They also said that they selected these products so that customers who come into the Alpha store can not only buy a phone, but also purchase very high-quality devices in the store to go along with their phone. And that's how they selected these products and these companies. So there are dedicated corners set up there. There's a photography corner, an audio corner, a gamer corner, and a multimedia corner. So these additional products are arranged thematically. But of course, the Honor store, the Alpha store, has a few other special features as well. One of them is that there's a huge area where JoJo assistance is available. You can have a conversation, though this is mainly exciting for Chinese people since it's not very good in English, and for now it doesn't speak Hungarian at all, but Chinese visitors can try it out for themselves. There's also a humanoid robot you can talk to as well, but they said there was a bit of a problem. The day before, a random Chinese customer basically kicked it over, so it fell, broke, and now it's really not working. Instead, they've put a replica in the corner as a stand-in, which also doesn't do anything. It just stands there, and we had to imagine what it would be like if it actually worked. So we really missed out on the robot part. In exchange, there was this little robot on display that you could also talk to, and you could ask it to do certain things. They told us it mostly understood Chinese, and I saw a girl there who asked it to do all sorts of things, and it did push-ups and dance for her. You could try speaking to it in English too, but there it was, pretty much just like, hi, or that's as far as we got, and after that, the science stopped and it just blinked its silly eyes. So there wasn't really any big euphoria for us, but in any case, you can see they're trying to help in all sorts of ways. There's a separate area for the salespeople, which is kind of like a bar counter, And there's also a separate gaming section where certain games are loaded onto Honor tablets, controllers, and TVs, and you can play with them. So there were a bunch of these sections. That's what the store is like. But honestly, I didn't feel it was all that special. I felt like, okay, this is an Apple store mixed a bit with a Tesco because you have this fancy environment. But at the same time, there are tons of products on display that you can buy. So the selection wasn't all that thoroughly curated, and it wasn't as unified as in any Apple store, but rather I found the whole thing a bit eclectic. But how should I put it? They've started down a path, and obviously their goal is to provide a more complex customer experience in Honor stores worldwide, along with a broader product range that doesn't just focus on Honor phones, watches, and, say, headsets, but also includes products from other manufacturers. So that was the store. Now, let's talk a bit about the Magic 8 Pro. The thing is, it's been a while since I last held the Magic 7 Pro in my hands, but I more or less remember that it was quite a large phone, and the 8 Pro isn't much smaller, but it is a bit smaller. This means that the previous 6.8-inch display has shrunk to a 6.71-inch display, while its resolution has remained almost the same, so it has a very sharp screen, and of course it's a flagship level display, so in terms of brightness, PWM, 10-bit color depth, and refresh rate, it delivers the level you'd expect from top models. There's absolutely nothing in the world has changed. The design hasn't changed much either, because it still has that circular disc on the back just like the previous model, and even the rear cameras have a very similar setup, which means that both the main camera and the ultra-wide are still 50 megapixels, and at first glance the sensors seem to be the same as well. The telephoto lens, however, is also still 200 megapixels, and the sensor is the same there too, but the lens system has been replaced because now the periscope is now capable of 3.7 times zoom, whereas before it was only 3 times. So you can bring your subject a little bit closer optically, and if you turn the dial, the AI will start working for you. Above 30 times zoom, you can clearly see that the photo you take is being processed, and as you go higher and higher, if you have an internet connection, well, if the situation calls for it, you can even imagine a little bit there, but add certain extra elements. Now, if you went outside, there was no internet connection on the device, but you could see that when you took the picture, an algorithm would then sharpen the image a bit further and create a higher quality shot from it. Obviously, these were just the first tests. Navigating the user interface wasn't complicated, so it does the same things as before. The interesting part will be when we actually get it in our hands and can try it out. We're curious to see what kind of results it will deliver. What's a bit strange in this story is that, as has been the case for quite some time with both Honor and Xiaomi, a product is first released on the Chinese market, and only a few months later does it appear in Hungary or the European market. As far as we know, the Honor will also be available only at the very beginning of next year. So until then, we can only look at the Chinese version, which, by the way, is much more attractively priced than it will likely be in Europe. But we checked out this Chinese phone that was on display. By the way, it was possible to get Google services running on it, and it was already prepared for the Hungarian language as well. We even switched it over, so in that respect it was fine. But of course there was not a single Google app on it, but from the Play framework we found that the Google services were actually pre-installed even on the Chinese model, just not activated. So it is likely you could get a Magic 8 Pro ordered from China to work with Google services. But then there is the issue of warranty, the bootloader, and I am sure there are other things to consider as well. There are a lot of issues with it, which is why we can only recommend it to those who are really knowledgeable in this area, because the price here is 250 to 260,000 forints. So at the right yuan exchange rate, it actually counts as a good deal, especially since it's already known that the battery size will differ between the European and Asian models. This was the case last year too, but now the difference is quite significant. So this means that the Magic 8 Pro is intended for the Asian market, and in the announced phone as well, it was this big, a 7,200 milliamp hour battery, which is a lot. However, for the European market, it will come with a 6,270 or 6,240 milliamp hour battery, something around that value, which is still really huge. So I can say that its capacity is almost 1,000 milliamp hours more than last year's model, which will probably have a good effect on battery life. So even in the European models, they're putting in a pretty big battery now, but not as big as in the Chinese version, because 7,200 milliamp hours is just insane. However, with both Xiaomi and Honor waiting several months after the Chinese launch before the European premiere happens, it basically creates a situation where Vivo beats them to the punch. The Vivo X300 Pro was just introduced as well. There's a video about it on the channel, and those Vivo phones will be available in Hungary within 2 weeks. So if someone wants a flagship model, if someone wants a fresh flagship model for Christmas that isn't an iPhone, then they might end up choosing Vivo, because the Xiaomi 17 and the Magic 8 Pro probably won't be available for purchase at home this year, at least not through official channels. That said, I think the Magic 8 Pro, in terms of its capabilities, well, obviously it has the latest Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, so it's got the newest, most powerful Qualcomm, but in terms of its features and its appearance, it hasn't changed all that much. Honestly, this year I'd say that apart from getting the mandatory chipset update, the main change is that they managed to reduce its size a bit and fit in a ridiculously large battery, but otherwise the performance specs on paper are very similar. The display's capabilities on paper are very similar. The IP68 to 69 drop test from 1.5 meters and things like that were already present last year. So there really isn't any earth-shattering advancement, but the fact that they can offer a bigger battery in a smaller size is definitely an important factor. So it will be very interesting to see, now that it has received the new hardware and of course the new Android, which will get support for 7 years, whether its camera performance can actually be better than last year's model. Because last year's model wasn't bad, of course, it had a really good camera, but when we compared the Magic 7 Pro with other flagship devices, it often ended up in last place among the other 4 flagship camera phones. So it really would be important for them to get more out of last year's camera setup with a new algorithm, especially if it gets a newer chipset, a stronger GPU, and of course a more up-to-date Android. So we're really curious to see how it will perform when it arrives in Hungary and Europe. We took a look at the Magic 8 and the regular one. This one is somewhat smaller, and you can mostly tell by the fact that the rear camera island is also smaller, so this camera disc on the back, it's much easier to reach across with one hand, so it's a more compact device, though not ultra compact. So don't think of it as a Magic 8 mini, because it's not that mini. It's still a pretty big phone, but it's noticeably easier to handle than the 8 Pro. We also heard that it won't be available in Hungary, so only the Pro model will be brought here. So that was pretty much the Honor visit. I wouldn't say it was uninteresting. It was definitely a bit exciting to see how Honor envisions what a Honor brand store should look like. We saw the first example of this in Shenzhen as well. On the other hand, it was also interesting to get our hands on the Magic 8 Pro, because even though I feel it's an exciting product, compared to last year, there isn't a significant leap in specifications or technology, but we can hope that there have been a lot of improvements on the software side, that maybe the AI is smarter than before, and perhaps with the replacement of the lens system in front of the telephoto sensor, there might be some progress in zoom photography as well. So when it arrives in Hungary, we really hope that we'll be among the first to test the European edition as well. If you're curious about our further adventures in China and you haven't subscribed yet, but you've made it this far in the video with me, I'd appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. And to everyone else, thank you as well for already being subscribed and for sticking with me through this video. I'm off to bed now. Thanks for watching. Bye. Shenzhen, Shanghai.